I'm in the dark. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video was actually inspired by the very recent announcement, I think it was 2 weeks ago at this stage, that COVID restrictions in Ireland are going to be lifting and subsiding.
We've concluded that the rationale and justification for continuing most of our public health restrictions are no longer in place. Therefore, from 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, the majority of public health measures that we have had to live with will be removed.
So that kind of announcement actually prompted me to do a little bit of reflecting, and I started to think about kind of how living under restrictions for the last 2 years impacted my life. And one of the main ways it did was in terms of creativity. So I would never have thought of myself as a very kind of creative person. I would never have identified as a creative kind of adult. I was always kind of, and to be honest, I was never really encouraged. I was always quite, academic and career focused, and I always kind of thought like creativity is something that you only do if you're like a really good artist or musician and you can actually make money from it. So creativity was just something that was never really in my kind of in my periphery. It was never even like kind of something I ever thought about. Having said that, I was a creative child. I used to really enjoy creative writing. I used to really enjoy kind of doing art, even though I wasn't very good at it. I still enjoyed it, and I used to really enjoy kind of putting things together, like my room and clothing and picking out clothing and having kind of, I think I had quite a nice personal style as a child and a teenager. But so I've always kind of been expressing creativity throughout my life, but never actually kind of identifying as a creative person, if that makes sense. So when March 2020 came around, up until this point I had been very kind of busy. I'd been very kind of, I was definitely in that whole kind of hustle culture thing. I was like getting up at 5. I bought rubies, and I think Ruby was kind of the first sort of step towards me being like, I'm not happy with my life. I need to have something that I actually enjoy, and I want to, so I saved up and I got Ruby. I started doing horse riding lessons, and that's a whole kind of other story. But even when I had Ruby and it was great and everything, but my job and kind of the other commitments I'd committed myself to doing, like kind of doing exams and stuff on top of my job, like obviously that didn't lend itself to being a very creative person. So up until March 2020 I was commuting, spending about 4 hours a day commuting into a city to sit at a job that I wasn't particularly enthusiastic about. I didn't really love it, not gonna sugarcoat it. I didn't. It was a good experience, glad I did it, but it wasn't, probably just wasn't for me. And then from going into that job every day, commuting 4 hours a day, then I would do part-time exams on top of that. I was trying to do an accounting qualification, even though I'm not really interested in accounting, so I don't know why I was doing that. And like I was doing a lot of things because I was like, I should be doing these are what's going to actually get me kind of far in life. And I was very like hustle. Ruby was kind of the first step of me being like, okay, I need to have something in here so I don't go insane, because I was starting to, before I got Ruby, I was kind of starting, the cracks were starting to appear where I was like, this is all stuff I don't like, and I'm spending all my days doing things I'm not really interested in. I need to have something, an outlet. So even with Ruby, I was still exhausted. I was still on the hamster wheel. I was getting up at 5 a.m. to go to the yard because I was determined to fit her into my day, but I just didn't really have the capacity to actually kind of enjoy things. I could just relax and just kind of take a minute to reflect. So March 2020 came along. We were all told to work from home. It was the first time in my adult life where I actually had some time to reflect and time to think, and all of a sudden I was getting proper sleep at night. I was eating nutritious meals. I was getting to spend some quality time at the yard. And then even without actually consciously deciding, oh, I'm going to start being more creative, I started to be more creative. Like I started to, all of a sudden I was really like, I was hanging around at the yard and I was like, I see this pretty sunset and I'd be like, oh, if I put Ruby there, I might get a nice silhouette. And I started to kind of think more kind of creatively. And then with that kind of came a passion for sure, just sharing all that on Instagram. And I think like I remember kind of the music feature had just come out on stories, and I was really enjoying making stories and putting up the, you know, music over the background. And I was just really, really enjoying kind of being creative and actually sharing things creatively. And I noticed actually, one of the things I started to notice was this kind of feeling of zen, or kind of feeling of flow that would come over me when I was doing something creative. And I remember actually my sister would sometimes come to the yard with me to take pictures and videos of me riding and stuff, so I could like edit them and stuff. And I remember she took like a good few pictures one day, and we were driving home in the car and she was like, I'll send them all to you now so you can like sit on the couch and, you know, for an hour and edit them. You'd always look so happy when you're doing that. And it was kind of like the first time I kind of thought like, yeah, I am actually very happy when I'm doing that. I really enjoy being in that kind of creative state and kind of thinking and having ideas and being in that kind of state of flow where I'm editing a photo or I'm thinking of a caption or I'm writing a caption, and actually I've lost all sense of time because I'm just really enjoying and I'm really engaged in what I'm doing. So with that kind of discovery, that kind of revelation, I started to actually kind of look into creativity a bit more and kind of read a bit more about it, because it just was something that wasn't even on my radar initially. So I read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and this actually was a really eye-opening book for me. It's quite an easy read, it's very accessible, and it's about kind of how to incorporate creativity every day into your life. So yeah, and I suppose kind of I definitely had a lot of kind of subconscious preconceptions about being creative and creativity, and I would have always kind of thought like, if you're not really good, what's the point? If you can't make money from it, what's the point? It's a waste of time. But actually this book kind of made me realise, no, it's not a waste of time. Like these are, it's kind of an act of self-expression, and it's actually, it doesn't matter if you get like 4 likes on a post or 400 or 4,000 or 400,000. Actually the point is that you've enjoyed creating something, and it's the kind of the meditative effect it's had on you while you were creating it, and the kind of sense of satisfaction, the intrinsic kind of sense of satisfaction that you get from actually creating something and putting it out there should be your motivation, as opposed to kind of the number of likes or whatever that you get. So I used to always kind of think like, oh, what's the point of me sharing photos of Ruby? Like lots of people have horses, lots of people can take better photos. And it's like, yeah, okay, they can, and absolutely they do. I don't think for a second that my photos are anything like extraordinary, but I like taking them, I like editing them, I like to think of a caption, and that is really all that matters. It's the kind of satisfaction and joy I get out of the whole process of thinking of a shot, taking it, writing caption, and then sharing it. So as kind of 2020 and 2021 progressed, I started to actually make more of a kind of conscious decision, kind of switch from this sort of like subconsciously, I was sort of had this extra time and I was like kind of just enjoying being creative without even realising it, and then I kind of switched as the months progressed to kind of taking a more kind of intentional like approach to being creative. So I started to take a more kind of intentional approach to being creative, and I was like, okay, I want to actually spend more time on this. I want to prioritise this in my week as I would the gym or going to see Ruby. I want to start kind of giving myself as many opportunities as possible to kind of bring out that creative side to me. So I built my own PC. Well, actually, I say I built it, I actually had to get the help of my brother to build it. I started to kind of learn how to edit videos by myself. I started kind of taking more videos, I invested in a camera, I started learning about more photography, I started learning about videography, and actually I've really enjoyed the whole learning process, and I've got so many new skills that I didn't have prior to like 2020. Like even in work the other day, I remember there was an instance where I had to use Canva, and I was like, oh, I use Canva all the time because I make my thumbnails from Canva. And it's just, yeah, I've got loads of new skills. I really enjoy learning it, and I want to kind of encourage people, because I really don't think it's out there enough, I suppose, kind of how being creative can kind of benefit you. And yeah, like you might think like, oh well, what's the point of me doing that, someone else has already done it. It's like, yeah, well, okay. And this is one of the points Elizabeth Gilbert makes in her book. It's like, yeah, there's 7 billion people on the planet, so chances are someone has already had the same idea. Someone has already probably done a video on creativity and trying to invite more creativity into your life, and it probably is better than this. But I mean, I'm doing it now because I actually enjoy doing it, and this is like learning for me, and it's kind of like nearly a video diary for me of what I've learned over 2020 and 2021. So yeah, I really would like to encourage more people to explore creativity and to invite themselves into that kind of state of flow where they're losing track of time. It's kind of having a meditative effect. It's just better, and it's just an act of self-expression, and it gives people a chance to kind of step out of that kind of hustle and always on the go, and I suppose kind of future focused mindset, and to kind of come back to the present a little bit. And with kind of being more aware of kind of creativity and how, like, when I am feeling creative and inspired, I actually have also become more aware of when I'm not, and when I notice that my creativity is waning. And typically it is when I'm busy in work or I haven't had enough sleep. And I do kind of think creativity is something that kind of comes when you are flourishing. It's not kind of, obviously your brain is not going to prioritise creative ideas or inspirational ideas when you're hungry, or you're tired, or you're having a panic attack over a deadline in work. Like, so I am very aware of when I'm not feeling creative now, and I will kind of take steps to kind of bring that back, because I actually really want to kind of live life with kind of creativity alongside kind of my gym and my health and fitness and my diet and my relationships. And I think actually now I have a relationship with creativity, and I want to kind of make it as nice and healthy a relationship as possible. So yeah, that is kind of one of the main kind of takeaways I took from the 2 years of living with COVID. I suppose kind of, obviously I do recognise I am totally like privileged to be able to take such a positive takeaway, and I completely understand that during the 2 years it was very different. I feel very lucky that that COVID by and large was positive for me, obviously, and the kind of the worst thing that came out of it for me was sort of mild inconveniences or annoyances. Obviously I know that wasn't the case for everyone. I know some people were really badly affected by it, and it wasn't kind of a time for them to kind of discover kind of creativity, or it was a very trying time for them, so completely understand that. But I do think that for a number of people there have been positives that have come out of COVID, and for me it definitely was kind of this rediscovery of sort of my creative self, and and kind of just trying to live better and to sort of be more present. So I definitely think that was one of the greatest takeaways of the 2 years for me. So yeah, that's my little ramble. I would highly recommend you read Elizabeth Gilbert's book on creativity. It's Big Magic. There's also another book I actually haven't read, but it's on my reading list. It's called The War on Art, and I can't remember the author's name, but it definitely is something I want to read, because it is something I'm quite interested in now and want to learn more about it, because it is such a kind of 180 from where I was with creativity. I just never considered myself a creative person, and now I actually do. I think I am quite creative, and I do have a lot of ideas, and yeah, maybe sometimes they don't translate well from my head into actual reality, but that's the whole point. The point is I'm always improving, I'm always learning, and I'm really enjoying the process. So that's my takeaways from the 2 years of living with restrictions. It was definitely, my kind of little reflection on this was definitely prompted by the announcement. It's great. I'm really glad that we're getting back to some sort of sense of normality. But I did like to kind of take the opportunity to sort of reflect on how my life has changed from now compared to how it was kind of pre-COVID. So I'd really like to hear if you have any kind of changes in mindset or kind of big revelations during the 2 years of restrictions. I think it would be really interesting to hear them. And I look forward to chatting with you in my next video. Bye guys!